this is my issue with the marriage thing. If we draw a chart, right? If we use a 3-column chart, we got a problem. We actually would have to use a 4-column chart because we have, let's see, one more. Hey, my screen went off. Come back, screen. Okay. So this one would be our preparatory stage, our prepositional. This would be positional, experience, and ultimate, right? Mm-hmm. Now, if we were to make a comparison of a marriage, what people do is they want to say, well, at the moment you say I do, that represents position. Okay? Because that does happen in a point in time. Right. The issue with it, though, is that most people don't say, hey, nice to meet you, let's get married. And even then, there's a process. So there's a preparatory process. And so the thing is that if you're going to talk about a preparatory process in this analogy, this would be pre-evangelism. You know, things leading up to you believing the gospel. The problem with the word marriage, using marriage, while it does happen in a point in time, and while it does indicate relationship, it often indicates commitment. And salvation is not by commitment. So that's the problem. And I put my dot in the wrong place, I think. But regardless, y'all get my point, right?
Yeah, and I was talking more about the experience aspect, you know, from right. From position to ultimate. But your point, backing up and starting there, is actually better for clarification because we're starting off on the wrong leg. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we're confusing the term commitment. And see, the thing is, there's a psychologist named Steinberg, and he had what was called Steinberg's triangle, and then there's variations of it, but if I remember it, it's commitment, passion, and intimacy. See, some relationships, some marriages, I mean, they use this for other relationships too, but some relationships are committed, right? They believe that marriage is until the grave, but there is no passion or no intimacy, or not that much, right? Others may be passionate, but there is no commitment. And then there's others that may be passionate and intimate, but no commitment. So, you know, you get the idea. And so what you see is that depending on how you draw the triangle, it's going to show what aspect of the relationship is being emphasized, you know, and all that. So this is good, though, to describe experiential dynamics. It's not good to describe positional dynamics because salvation is not based on a commitment. So just like you were saying, Mark, if you're going to use marriage, then what you're talking about is that at the moment of salvation, not because it's a commitment, but you're placed into union. Okay? Mm-hmm. But the passion, intimacy, commitment aspect varies experientially. It should be a broken lot because you're in and out of fellowship. You know what,
is it 2 Timothy 2:20? If we remain faithful, or how's that go?
If we're faithless, he remains faithful.
Yeah, that little triangle you drew, that goes perfect with that because in the end, it's always the position of God, that remains faithful.
Well, that was passion, but yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, passion. Yeah.
So I mean, I understand what people do, but the problem is that in a marriage, if you use a marriage relationship, if you try to say salvation is like a marriage, then what you do is it opens the door for the conditional securities to say, okay, well, you can get divorced.
Right.
Now, you can say God hates divorce. You can say that. And you can say God will never divorce you. But then they'll say, well, he will divorce Israel. But then you got to explain that when it talks about divorce in the Old Testament, it's talking about the Mosaic covenant. They violated the Mosaic covenant. And when they're talking about the marriage imagery in the New Testament with the church, it's a purity imagery. So if we go to
what Janet was talking about, the bride, and the imagery,
yes,
and I did say,
yes,
I did say, well, that's experiential because he wants to present us not ashamed and faithful, right?
Yeah, I think is it 2 Corinthians? Is it 2 Corinthians 11? Yeah. I wish that you would bear with me in a little foolishness, but indeed you're bearing with me. For I am jealous for you with a godly jealousy, for I betrothed you to one husband. So this is Paul, the best man. So that, or maybe father of the bride, but I think best man's better imagery. So that to Christ I might present you as a pure virgin. But I'm afraid that as the serpent deceived Eve by his craftiness, your minds would be led astray from the simplicity and purity of devotion to Christ. And so what you're seeing here is that he's describing a situation before marriage, right? For I betrothed you to one husband. Now, in the Jewish culture, if God betroths you, it can't be reversed, right? But what can be reversed is the experience, or what can be cheapened, I guess you could say, is that's the purity issue. And this passage right here.
Still hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
So if you can still hear, I think you can hear me, right?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, there was something that changed in the setting, but anyways, yeah, you brought up a really interesting point. Is that the analogy also breaks in that we are not united to Christ until we die in this life.
Well, no, there's other passages that say we're united, but I wouldn't use it as the marriage imagery. We're not united in matrimony, but we are betrothed.
Well, let me rephrase it. The imagery that you just talked about is betrothal, and when he comes back for his bride, there's a completion there. But there's also verses that talk about we're seated with him in the heavenlies and all that too. Mm-hmm. So I think we need to separate those things.
Yeah. So right here, Colossians 1:22, the passage I just read, this unlocks this passage because people have problems with this passage. It says, and although you were formerly alienated and hostile in your mind, engaged in evil deeds, yet he has now reconciled you in his fleshly body through death, in order to present you before him holy and blameless and beyond reproach. And then it says, if indeed you continue in the faith, firmly established and steadfast, and not moved away from the hope of the gospel that you have heard, which is proclaimed in all creation under heaven, to which I, Paul, was made a minister. So you're not going to be presented holy and blameless if you don't continue in the faith. Firmly established. There's a couple places where these words all pile up each other. I can't remember them all right now. A lot of people think this is talking about loss of salvation. But to get back to what we're saying, if you use the marriage thing, you better be prepared when somebody's going to say, well, in a marriage, you could divorce, you could separate, you could do this or you could do that. And it puts things in a wrong perspective. Let me tell you why. Because at the moment of salvation, you make a decision that has irreversible consequences. Now, free will people don't like that because they're like, I want to be able to fall out of Christ. I want to be able to take my salvation back. Well, the thing is that you've been transferred into the eternal realm, and you can't reverse that. And if you did try to reverse it, guess what you would be doing? You're operating from the temporal realm, and what's done in time can't reverse what's done in eternity. So, you remind them that there are some choices that have irreversible consequences. You can only be a virgin once. Suicide is irreversible.
And you've heard me say this before, and God is the ultimate rescuer. In other words, when we believed, we were transferred out of darkness. He died for us when we were sinners. We were transferred out of darkness into the kingdom of light when we believed on him, and it's something he did for us. Because what is the pivotal, to me, the pivotal point of your life is when you go from unbelief to belief, right? And so if God is a God of his character and word, and the only way to rescue us, what's that?
To be clear, we need to say from never belief to belief.
Yeah, right. Never belief to belief, to clarify the free grace language so we don't get confused with the condition. When we transfer into that, the Bible makes it clear that's all we're really capable of doing is thinking clearly at one point with God's help and grace through the gospel and preparatory, pre-evangelism to leading to evangelism. And the moment we believe is the pinnacle of our life. Everything after that is in family. So who you were born as will become no greater event than that one moment that you believed. So now we're going to have God 5 years later, 6 years later, 20 years later, 70 years later, when you could, stop thinking incorrectly, not walk according to the Spirit, have a tragedy in your family, whatever. And now you're going to think less clear to whatever extent that the conditionalists want to argue. And now God's not going to honor you. That's absolutely ridiculous, because the point of the Bible was that we could never help ourselves anyways out of this condition. So God honors the point of contact with him forever.
Yes. And I want to mention this real quick, because sometimes the Calvinists will use this argument, and I used to use this argument. When you talk about redemption, right? You're bought from the slave market of sin. And the whole thing about in redemption, the problem with the metaphor of redemption is, do you have a choice in redemption? Do you?
Well, Mark? the positional act is of God.
Yeah, God does it, but that's what I'm trying to say. That's where the illustration breaks down. But what people would do is they'll say this, that God redeems you, and you had no choice in that because you were a slave to sin, and he just makes you a slave of him. That's why MacArthur wrote the book Slave or Doulos. They always want to emphasize that and everything. But the thing is, though, is that all metaphors break down. Because we know from other metaphors that we're not just talking about a slavery imagery. And so we have to be very careful about not pushing one metaphor over another,
Yeah. And discipleship is different than being saved. It's two different things. It's which they don't think it is. But if they did realize that, that's where the Father, because when people use father imagery, my father will never let me down. My father will never let me go. My husband and wife, they can get divorced. But I always like to say position is fatherly. Relationship is discipleship. That's how I looked at it. Discipleship can be tough. Family life, you're in no matter how difficult or simple it can be.
Right. And I run everything through the chart. So I could talk about positional discipleship, experiential discipleship, and ultimate discipleship.
Oh, like being sanctified, fully set apart for God's ministry, right? Like this, we're fully set apart to do what he wants, right?
Yeah, but my screen keeps blinking on me. I hope. All right. So the thing is that positional discipleship, though, is who's got the main role in it. You are receiving. So what are you receiving? You're believing the gospel. So that's evangelistic. So if you want to make a discipleship part of salvation, only part it could play in is you passively listening and believing the gospel. And then everything else that we typically call discipleship would go here. And then ultimate would be in the kingdom being taught by Christ or something.
Right. And given the privilege of coming to the throne, confessing, talking to God plainly, all those things are given to you at the moment of position. So you have the tools. It really comes down to, like we always talk about, what does it mean to be born again?
My monitor is glitching, but I want to look at. Is there any comments?
Yeah, Janet, any questions? Because we kind of went off in the marriage analogy until we had questions.
She's feeding the cats. What is conditionalism? I don't know why my monitor is blinking like this.
And Charles, just so you know, I'm not able to see the chat. I'm only backstage on my phone.
Okay, well, my monitor's blinking in and off. I can handle it, but I don't know why, Mark, it does this on this computer sometimes, every once in a while. But I just updated my drivers, so that might have been what it was. But anyway, the question, what is conditionalism? Two ways you can look at conditionalism. Anyone that believes you can lose salvation, they're conditionalists. Another way to look at conditionalism is that anybody that believes in annihilationism is a conditionalist. All right. And then Smith next. Can God save someone that never believed? No. How do you explain Romans 3 about God saving unbelievers? What makes you think Romans 3 is about unbelievers?
Well, I mean, tangent, Anabaptists believe, I've heard Anabaptists believe that you can never even hear the gospel, but you go to heaven or you enter the kingdom because you were elect. So I know I know that belief exists.
Right. All right. So this is what he's talking about. Let me share my screen. Romans 3:3. This is talking about Israel. What then, if some did not believe? Their unbelief will not nullify the faithfulness of God, will it? May never be. I would actually let me check the Greek. But if I remember right, let's see, where's unbelief? 3:3. Tegar episteson tines mete epistia autante piston tatheu kater gese. All right, so right there, you see that, Mark? Apista.
Yeah. Hold on a second.
So you know, pistis is your word for faith, but it's got the alpha privative before it, right? But the thing is, so this is a nominative. But here's the question: is this a noun or is this an adjective? And if it's a noun, can you still describe a concept like unfaithfulness as a noun? You know, this. So here's my point: the way that they're being unfaithful is by not believing. So right here in 3:3, what then if some did not believe? Some of what? Some of Israel. Because the promise is all Israel will be saved eventually, but that's referring to a remnant. What then if some did not believe? Some of the nation. Their unbelief will not nullify the faithfulness of God, will it be? And so rather not. No. So yeah. So Smith Nix, I'm a dispensationalist. And so I take that as referring to Israel. So it's not saying God's saving unbelievers. All right. And don't be surprised if Justin don't come in here pretending to be somebody else. I mean, we blocked him on every account that he came up to. But if you start seeing, I know some theology is universalist, but if we start seeing a flooding in of universalists going on here, one of them is probably Justin, or Justin is probably sending them this way. Okay. Some theology is a moderator. He's always been respectful on the channel. He's never pushed the boundaries. And as long as he remains that way, he can stick around. You know, you don't have to be free grace to have a wrench, be a moderator. So what does remnant mean? It means like leftovers, remainder. The resin you could talk about, you know, the leftovers. Josh C says, have you believed because you have seen me? Blessed are those who have not seen and have believed. Yeah. All right. Well, I don't see any more questions. Mark, where'd you go?
He is here. Oh,
Yeah,
there's
he
two
left.
more.
I don't interpret that as only Israel, but I understand your view. Well, the reason I interpreted Israel in that passage, he says, what advantage has the Jew? Or what is the benefit of circumcision? So this is the question he's answering. And let me share my screen again. Oh, I am sharing my screen. He says, great in every respect. First of all, that they, who is they? The Jew. They were entrusted with the oracles of God. And see, there's a pun here in Romans 3:2. If you look, let me see, where is it? 3:2. That they were entrusted. It's epistu theson. So this is the word for belief. And this pun is also used in John 2. So when it's saying entrusted, they were entrusted with the oracles of God. What then is some of them didn't believe? So there's like a pun going on there. And they were entrusted as stewards, but yet they weren't faithful. They didn't believe. And would that nullify the faithfulness of God? And then you'll see that also right here, the faithfulness of God, piston. May it never be. And so that's what it's clearly talking about Israel. The only way you can try to get around that is if you try to say this is not referring to an actual Jew. And I don't know of anybody on the face of the earth that takes that interpretation right here. I think everyone takes the view that this is talking about the physical Jew here. Because look, circumcision is in parallel with that. So he's not talking about a spiritual Jew or the church is Israel or anything like that. I think even supersessionists, which is the better term than replacement theology, or some of them like the term fulfillment theology, they would probably say that this is referring to physical Jews here. Funny question. I wonder if you could rap in Greek. No, I can't. If I could speak in Greek, I could rap in Greek. I mean, I could just go from like lexical forms of words. Like I could say, I'm the didaskalos with the logos. But to say that right, I would have to say didaskalos proston logon. I'm pulling from John 1 there. I would have to say I'm the logos. So I'm the one. So I would have to say ego and me, right? I am the one would probably be ego and me ace. No, haste. Ego and me haste. And I don't even know if that's inflected form. Ace halagos ton lagon pros ton lagon. I'm the one. Mark keeps falling in and out. What's happening, Mark? Do you have like a bad connection?
Can you hear me now?
No, I can't speak in Greek. That means like language. Yeah, I can hear you. You're leaving the chat and coming back in. That's what's happening.
It's because I couldn't find the StreamYard portal, and every time I tried to come back in, I was on twice. So I had to turn my phone on and off to come. I come back and only hear you once. I was getting the double sound.
Okay.
Yeah,
Not sure. Well, if there's no more questions, we're gonna land the plane. Because I need to discipline myself and get working on my paper. So I won't be doing a stream working on that paper. But go ahead, Mark.
I was going to say, I think Janet, Taylor, and Chris, they were on there for quite a while, so they did a good job.
Yeah, Janet started at 7, and then Taylor came in. So tomorrow, Janet is going to start at 6. Okay. So that'll give more time. Yeah. But this was just to get people's feet wet. I like to throw Janet in the water and watch her swim. That's what I did with y'all too.
Yeah.
And
Janet, good. You did a good job. You did a real good job, Janet. Thank you.
Yeah.
All what I'm going to do is just open the door and Free Gracer will come in and answer the question. I cannot answer the questions.
Tell the audience why you cannot answer the questions, Janet.
I cannot answer the question because the question here are men questioning and I am a woman. Seems like I'm teaching them. So I don't want to answer the question, but the men answer the men's question or the women's or all the people on the chat.
And who told you that belief?
That's my own thought. I know we are not on the chat, but I am on first not,
But no,
let's not in Corinthians.
tell
In
them what your thought was at CCF when you first became a Christian.
what do you mean by CCF before I be? Oh, yeah, I already share a little bit my testimony when my the beginning of my Christianity when I become a believer. I already shared that I met a CCF pastor on the plane domestic flight from Davao to Cebu,
Not the
and
evangelism part, the
from
part
from
about
the part
the pastoral.
oh
That
the pastoral when I undergo the Bible study under CCF, they told me that the teacher of a single group, because I was single the time, and the leader uh, asked us. We are 8 single in that group, in that small group, and telling us that why are you here and doing Bible study? We don't teach men Bible study, and yet some of you saying that this man approached me and I shared this Bible to him, and then so the leader told us that, ladies, you are not the one who teach Bible to the men, because you are under man's authority. And then he said that the reason why you are here is because God, you are singles, and God have meant for you, enable your knowledge here. You are preparing for that God's provision, God's provision for you to be married if you are deciding to be married. And then all my all the group, all the ladies there pointing at me. Oh, Janet wanted to be married, like that. Go, "Oh, what?" And then the teacher, our Bible teacher said that, okay, Janet, the reason you are so active on this, God have one for you. So I don't know who was that, but that was 2007. He's the teacher, or she is telling us that. So, and then I got married 2019. How many years did I wait? I'm not waiting because I'm not expected because of my age,
yeah, but when did you meet me? Don't make it sound like just 2019.
I get
We just
married.
did made a chart about the process
It
before
was
marriage.
it was 2013. I think before that, because but I ignored the Lehman. I mean, he's not the Lehman Seminary during that time, because I just first met him. The friend of mine telling me about this person, the Bible teacher. Then I he this Bible teacher invited me to friend him on Yahoo Messenger, which is I
Simon from
ignore.
India. Yeah.
Yeah, Simon from India. I ignore him, though I already add him, but it takes days or months, I think, before I add him on Yahoo Messenger, because I have this struggle about the speaking in tongues, and
Okay. All right.
also like that. So
Let me fast forward your story because we don't need everything. We just need a
okay,
recap. All right. So
so
the thing is, Asawako, is uh when you met me, right? And we started studying the Bible.
mm-hmm,
I forgot my thought now.
okay,
But basically the reason I was saying, is, oh yeah, Janet was underneath a different covenant at that time, right? Because Janet had been abandoned, and they don't have divorce in the Philippines. You have annulments through the Catholic Church or
mm-hmm,
presumed dead.
mm-hmm,
Okay. So
yeah,
let me just show y'all. Janet, look, you can understand this passage here. I know you've seen it before.
Share your screen, please.
All right. Romans 7. Or do you not know, brethren, from speaking to those who know the law, that the law has jurisdiction over a person as long as he lives? For the married woman is bound by law to her husband while he is living. But if her husband dies, she is released from the law concerning the husband. So this backs up the idea about the covenant, the marriage being related to covenant, right? So then, if while her husband is living, she's joined to another man, she should be called an adulteress. But if her husband dies, she is free from the law, so that she's not an adulteress, though she's joined to another man. Therefore, my brethren, you also were made to die to the law through the body of Christ, so that you might be joined to another, to him who was raised from the dead, in order that we might bear fruit for God. Okay? So that idea is there. Any thoughts, Janet?
No, I agree.
Yes,
So,
Mr.
have a question.
Yes, Mr. Universe. Hopefully that doesn't mean. Go ahead, Mr. Universe. You just asked a question.
Why is that not the pastor? Just not the pastor.
Just
you
not
mean that the pastor, his wife dead, cannot married? Is that what you mean by that?
No. I think what he's saying is this referring to women in the church or just anywhere?
Okay.
Remember, Noah's like 19 or whatever, so he's probably not married. So, I think he's 19. But anyway,
how able you know the ages of your audience? My goodness.
No. See, what he's saying is there a means of asking a question on stream. No, we're not doing that. Not this time. Had an argument with a Catholic recently. I have a question as to how you would exegete Proverbs 23:2. Okay, I can answer it that way, but I'm fixing to have to go after that. This would be the last question. Proverbs 23:2. What is your doctrine, by the way, so that I know how to reply? Oh, yeah. I know what this is.
What do you mean?
This is somebody talking trash. He says he's not. He says he's not. Yeah. No, this is a joke question. I'm assuming, but we'll go ahead and play the game with them.
Just asking. Don't conclude.
All right. So this is where they're trying to say I'm fat. All right. Proverbs 20. Yeah, let me show you why. In 23:1, when you sit down to dine with the ruler, consider carefully what is before you, and put a knife to your throat if you're a man of great appetite. And so they're just making this person is just making a fat joke. Okay, I probably know who it is. They're basically saying you're a sinner because you're not putting a knife to your throat. Well, let me know when I come in front of a ruler. The whole context of this passage is don't be a freeloader. So I don't know what you mean about a Catholic. They might be talking about the gluttony thing, the sin of gluttony, but that's not the focus. The focus is not so much being a gluttonous. It's don't be a freeloader. Don't wear out your welcome.
Maybe he's referring to a Catholic.
Maybe this is not someone I know, but some people use this fat joke on me.
Yeah, because Catholics are fat joke. Catholics
are, Yeah, but anyway, the context is when you're in front of a ruler. So this is all about the whole idea about don't wear out your welcome. Look, it keeps on going on. Do not desire his delicacies. Who? Of the ruler. Because how do you know that the king ain't trying to get you to die or get suckered in?
Catholic are not rulers.
For it is deceptive food.
Yeah.
So they don't even understand. They're not even understanding the passage correctly.
Yeah, and Mr. Universe said, I appreciate your input. So
This is probably a warning about poisoning. Go ahead.
Mr. Universe, maybe he's serious about the about the verse, because he said he appreciate your he said,
No
I
problem.
appreciate
No
your input.
problem. But contextually, it's not about gluttony. It's about don't trust a ruler. Honestly, it's
Yeah,
like saying no.
don't trust Catholic.
If somebody says, "Hey," it's like the dope man, right? The dope man. The first hit is free. They want to get you hooked, or don't. But if you meet somebody and they're like, "Hey, make yourself at home, enjoy all of this," you got to think, man, there's got to be a string attached. Now imagine if you're a ruler, right? Right now, P Diddy, right now, if he invites you to take you to shopping, don't go, right? Anyway, some of y'all are gonna laugh at that. Some of y'all are gonna cringe. But regardless of that, the point is that food could be laced with poison. It could be a trap. You could be thinking, hey, I got exalted to this position to go in this ruler and I'm gonna eat. And if you are a person that is a sucker for that, then you'll fall for that. I mean, we can look at a commentary on it, but let's go ahead and this is a good opportunity to show people Constable's notes. And then I'm gonna have to go. I'm laying in the plane like Janet does. Constable's notes, put in the book, Proverbs, and then you'll see Plano Bible Chapel. Click on it, and the PDF comes up. And then we can go to... This is free. It's updated every year.
Yeah, I'm using that to understand the whole book, like the book of John. If I check the outline now, even though I didn't read the whole book of John, but I when I read the outline from Constable's notes, it makes me have an idea of what and why the book of John is there in the Bible.
Right. All right. So let me just show y'all this. The 30 sayings, right? From 22, 20 to 24, they're saying it's one unit. Walkie, that's Bruce Walkie. Title the first 10 sayings, a decalogue of sayings about wealth. Note the chiastic structure in these 4 lines. So chiastic structure is like the CH, like in Christ, the key symbol in Greek. I wish I could write on my screen right here. There should be I know you could do it in other things. Why can't I write? Let's see, tools. I need to learn how to write on a screen in Google Browse. But anyway, so he's talking about he says, note the chiastic structure in these 4 lines. So he's talking about this part right here. Then we keep going, and we get to 23. So all this is about warnings to wealth. It said, the point of this vice is to be humble and restrained. Jesus said this, don't sit in the best seats. Let you get that best seat, and then someone say, hey, get down here. But no, sit yourself in the low so that people exalt you. But here, the point of this vice is to be humble and restrained in the presence of a prestigious host. You know, there's a video where Snoop Dogg is talking to some Crips. This is years ago. He's talking to some Crips, and he's giving a speech supposedly uniting people to their gang stuff. And the event was preparing a guy for going off the prison. And so Snoop is saying all these things, and in my point, he's like repeating himself. It's fine, Mark. So, but Snoop keeps on repeating himself, and it's like, man, dude, you repeat yourself too much. But regardless of that, what happened was another Crip started speaking. Hey, Dr. Helms, and so the other Crip that was speaking. This is what Snoop said. He said, it's a good thing what you said is good, Because right now he said, you're always talking out of pocket. He said, we on some real stuff. We on some business stuff. And you're talking out of pocket. The point is that here's Snoop with all his clout and respect and with his pride from the worldly standpoint, giving this speech, and this other guy thinks he can just speak up and be united with him, in that sense. And it didn't show humility. And so Snoop kind of checked the guy. But, I mean, that's kind of like a secular example of this attitude. The guest should put a knife to his own throat rather than to his food. Curb your appetite, control himself. Why? Threaten your appetite with death. I can state this in very commonplace language. Don't make a pig of yourself when you're invited out to eat, especially if you're invited to a place that serves you gourmet food, the type of food that you're not accustomed to eating. And that captures some of it, but it doesn't deal with the possibility of the trap. Let's see what else says. The fact that the host serves delicacies may not indicate that he esteems the guests highly. It could be a test. Like, what's that movie, The Dinner with the Schmucks or whatever? The host may be simply getting him in a good mood for his own selfish reasons. Like Diddy. He may want something from him, or he may be evaluating him. What is before you is better than who is before you. So it's like a test. Daniel faced this temptation, indulged his desires away from home, disciplined himself in his eating habits. This guy says, my father was once invited to dine with Generalissimo Chiang Kai-shek, the head of the nationalist government in China, and his wife, Madame Chiang of Taiwan. At dinner, the Generalissimo noticed that my father was not eating much and asked if he did not like the food. My father explained that he was trying to apply a biblical proverb and quoted this one. This amused the Generalissimo greatly. So, if people are going to use it against me, at least use it correctly.
Yeah, so Josie said, what a jerk, or maybe probably, he's not serious at all. No one in the history of the world asked a question about Proverbs 23 verse 2. No one.
Well, it could be a Catholic gluttonous person, but the point, we'll just see. All right, guys, I'm going to land the plane because, hey, Doki, I'm going to land the plane because I need to work on my paper. And, but yeah, we're going to be doing this every day, at least within the weekdays. We're going to be doing this Ask Free Grace. And whoever's Free Grace can pop in and answer people's questions. There'll be an order. There'll be some facilitating going on or whatever. Janet will open up the room for free gracers to answer questions. This is not a free for all. But yeah. And so instead of telling y'all to do a bunch of things, go ahead, Janet. What were you going to say?
No, I'm just want to have a reminder, people, that I'm only opening the house. Okay.
Hey, Ashley. Now everybody's showing up. Oh boy.
I'm just opening the house and leave the visitors or the free gracer come in, and they are the one will answer your question.
Right.
I read someone comments earlier that, do you like a woman pastor? Don't you support women pastors? Canadian. We don't support that women need to teach, have a leader in the church,
and Dr. Helms, the plan is Janet is going to open up the Ask Free Grace stream. Janet, I need to show you how to do the the trailer and the ducks too, if you want to use them. But and also how to make moderators. I need to show you those things. I'll show you those things in a minute. But 6 p.m. Central. Okay, so instead of telling y'all to do a bunch of things, YouTuber gurus, they just suggest that you go tell somebody to go watch something else on your channel. David Preston is a hyper dispensationalist. He believes that salvation is was by faith plus works in the Old Testament. I've debated him twice before. Once the Old Testament salvation and another on James. He believes so. Dr. Helms, that would be a great debate for you. It would be great to see you in eschatology, and that's a debate I could root for you for on. Yeah, I know, and we need a strong dispensationalist debater on SFT's channel. There's not very much dispensationalism. That's standing for truth. Same channel you and I debated on. Maybe you could take up some of those debate challenges. Just contact SFT. Okay, yeah. So guys, check out other content on the Layman Seminary. Take a look around and go from there. Yeah, I am too, Dr. Helms. God bless, guys.